What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is going to be a beautiful April Fool's mock draft, the most realistic April Fool's mock draft that you will see today. So, if you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is always changing because I'm actually adding positional value in, so a lot of this is being changed right now. Evaluations are being updated, so you'll be seeing guys moving up, moving down. It is extremely unique. Yes, do I force that? Absolutely not, but I'm allowed to have my own opinion. We'll see if it's actually valid. But over the past couple years, I do find some draft gems that I do love, and they do end up working out sometimes. And you know what? That's the best thing in the world. So this is going to be on the premise that I'm going to take essentially maybe the second best, but something within reality that is just a little bit off what some other picks might be. So for the first overall pick, it is almost a guaranteed deal that it's going to be Caleb Williams, but there is a chance that it's Drake May, right? I mean, there's always a chance. So that's why I think that it's fun to play with this idea. But we're going to essentially start the mock draft by doing that. Like, it is going to be a quarterback. So that's almost a guaranteed position. So let's look at maybe the second best option. I actually did a video with my boy James Foster on A to Z Sports where we did the non-consensus mock draft, where you have to take a player that's not in the consensus. And the consensus number one pick was Caleb Williams, obviously. So Drake May was the next best choice. And so I'm going to do that as well. And it's not insane to think that if you're not going to be going Caleb, they'd go Drake, right? So I think that's a very smart move. Again, it is April Fool's. There's going to be a little bit of an element of craziness here. This is going to be a way where I can flex some of the players I really love, but I still keep it within the realm of reality because at number 2, they're going to be going quarterback for the Commanders, but I don't think they would end up passing on Caleb. Yes, I could be an absolute moron and we can have a hilarious mock draft where, Caleb slips to the freaking Giants. Absolutely. But we also I want to keep this within the realm of reality because we see some things where teams have a guy way above another player on a board and it's like, whoa, what the hell happened there, right? So it's pretty obvious Caleb Williams going to be that pick. So at pick number 3, again, we're keeping it realistic with a supreme twist, which is like, hey, we're going to see some curveballs come out of left and right field. I think the Patriots could certainly be in the market for offensive tackle or wide receiver. Now, this is a super deep wide receiver class. They very well might be interested in the top tier offensive tackles because I don't know if there's a starter that would be available for them in round number 2. Now, I think that's probably the best idea to go a quarterback or wide receiver here, but it is feasible because actually a sub brought this up on my most recent mock draft with that franchise guy. We ended up seeing that, hey, there was a future first as well as a first this year. So 6 moving up to 3 offered a future first. And I was like, no, because I want to get one of the QBs or one of the wide receivers. Not really going to get one at that point, right? But we ended up looking and, somebody brought up, hey, they could move back and get Joe Alt. That is very possible, and it's a very Patriots move. Develop the offensive line, then go after a quarterback later. So, yes, it is mayhem, but this is not out of the realm of possibility. If this team values its starting offensive line more than getting an upgrade at quarterback, or they don't even think there's a massive upgrade at quarterback or wide receiver, this is realistic, potentially. It is not the probable option. It is a possible option. But of course, at pick number 4, we are not going to be doing trades because, again, there is a chance where the Vikings do not trade up. That's why I'm also doing this. But the Cardinals, I don't think they would be able to pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. You could see Rome Odunze here and like the world lights on fire, but I don't think Rome Odunze's skill set brings to the table the same thing that Marvin Harrison Jr. does. Again, we got to keep it within the realm of reality. Marvin Harrison Jr. is that pick. Again, I also think at pick 27, there's going to be some potential receiving options, but they are so much worse than here at pick 4 for a team that is going to be overvalued at that position because of Kyler Murray, that I think it's, we could have went after an offensive tackle here. Maybe could have went after defensive interior or an edge rusher, but I think that the Joe Alt move is a little bit more up the Patriots' alley than the Cardinals opting out of arguably a generational wide receiver. At pick number 5 for the Los Angeles Chargers, to me, offensive tackle is that dark horse position here, of course, but I do think that tight end is also within the realm of possibility. Blocking is a big factor for the Chargers. I think Brock Bowers is a very underrated blocker. Now, I also could see corner being a position, but they just brought on Christian Fulton. I'm not fully sold on that. I used to go Tali Fuaga, but I actually am starting to have Tali Fuaga graded as an elite, if not Hall of Fame level offensive guard that can be a very serviceable starting quality right tackle. That could certainly be up Harbaugh's avenue, but I think that for the sake of this mock draft, he wants to get a receiving weapon and gain some blocking prowess at the same time. We will end up going with Brock Bowers over the receiving crew. The drop off from Brock Bowers to tight end 2 is exponential. The drop off to the next receiving core is maybe not so much. At pick 6 for the New York Giants, you got Malik Neighbors on the board. But this team is desperate for corner as well. Their corner core is ass. Complete cheeks. This might be a very deep corner class, but you will not be getting a starting quality corner like Quinyon Mitchell, who matches up very, very similarly to Deonte Banks, but a little bit more polished than Deonte was coming out. I think Quinyon Mitchell might just be that sneaky pick. You could also see how you could get Terrion Arnold in here because he was a former 5-star safety. He also is really good in zone coverage. He's also slot versatile and technically safety versatile because he was a 5-star safety. I still think Quinyon Mitchell matches the profile of what they have leaned towards in recent drafts a little bit better. We're going to see Quinyon Mitchell going to the Giants. At pick number 7, the Tennessee Titans are on the board. It feels like it's an almost guarantee at this point that they go offensive tackle. And with Joe Alt off the board, this is where we actually could see a great pick in Troy Fautanu, who is up there with that next best left tackle. I also think that Olu Fashanu is getting a bad rap here. Now, Olu Fashanu is above Troy Fautanu on my offensive line sheet. And I also think Troy Fautanu is equally as good as a guard as he will be a tackle. So I do like him in terms of positional versatility. I think Tolly is a little bit better of a tackle than Troy, but both of them are, also guard versatile. Olu Fashanu is a pure tackle in my opinion. Now, the one thing I do see on this team that they could go after at this spot is an edge rusher. But I think that the need for left tackle is so blatantly obvious, they are going to go after Olu Fashanu here. I could go Troy, but I think because there is still that question, because his play dictated a lot of people thought he very well might be a guard. Olu Fashanu has never been questioned to be an interior offensive lineman. And I think that there needs to be a little bit more love put on his name. For the Falcons, y'all know exactly where I'm going to be going with this one. It's either going to be Malik Neighbors, Romo Dunze, or a corner. Now, I don't think that with all the free agency acquisition that they've had that they're going to be going after a wide receiver, but I also am bringing this up in my 7-round mock draft, which I'm dropping later, so there's my little plug right there. They only have guys on pretty short-term contracts overall, and I think Malik Neighbors very well might be a very solid selection here. So, I mean, you could go after corner. I absolutely think that is still a primary need, but I think that, the dark horse pick here would be Malik Neighbors slipping to this point, and it is just too good to pass on. At pick number 9 for the Chicago Bears, the wide receiver with Sloan Odunze is the obvious selection, but we got to do some things here. And on that edge, number 2, DeMarcus Walker, I'm not a fan of it. So we're going to be testing out the theory of going after an edge rusher here. Leatu Latu is actually a lot better than I gave him credit for. He has actually moved up to 24th on my board. And he was originally at like 30th. So it's not that exponential. But again, we're factoring in a lot of different shifts. And as we continue to reevaluate players, we get a clearer eye on which players I think should be up a little bit higher than others. So we already got that QB. We got Drake May. Again, could have been Caleb Williams. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, guys. I also think that, we have seen quarterback slip here. It could have went to the Giants, but, there is a universe where we do see quarterback slip. Jaden Daniels could easily slip. It's not just an April Fool's thing. But for the Bears, I am going after an edge rusher. And the edge rusher I don't think we expect to go first is Jared Verse, who I think is actually a really good complement to Montez Sweat. So we're going to go Jared Verse as the first edge rusher off the board. Again, you could go after Dallas Turner, could go after Leatu Latu. I usually like to go after Dallas Turner above Jared Verse, but I think Jared Verse might be a guy with that run stopping ability, might be a little too stiff, a little bit too tall in the run game, but that is, in my opinion, a relatively easy fix for how smart and how dominant he is able to play in the run game. At pick 10 for the New York Jets, the obvious selection is offensive tackle or wide receiver, and I think that's where we're going to end up staying. I think wide receiver with Rome Odunze is almost too obvious at this point, and, I think also Troy Fautanu, though. The offensive tackles are not going to last, but you also can get Tali Fuaga here. And I think that's the most logical option is to go Tali Fuaga, play him at guard in the short run as he learns how to play tackle from those great veterans. So I'm not going to go with the most logical selection. I'm going to go with something that might be a little bit more of a curveball. Troy Fautanu, absolutely. But again, I think there needs to be a level of realism here to where I don't know if the Jets could say no to Rome Odunze. So Rome Odunze goes in there and pairs up with Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson. That's going to be a killer trio. Again, got to keep it realistic. I think offensive tackle would be their first motive, and then it would be going to offensive tackle. At pick number 11 for the Minnesota Vikings, quarterback is such an egregious need that I do think they would be in the market for one at this pick. I think that, to be fair, they do need defensive interior help. You could go Byron Murphy here. And you could also go Troy Fautanu or Tali Fuaga to play interior offensive line for this team with some, potential upgrade at offensive tackle in the long run. You could also potentially look at a defensive back like Terrion Arnold here, not out of the realm of possibility. But again, quarterback is such an egregious need that we should go after it. And right now, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, there's rumors that J.J. McCarthy might be looked at more positively than Drake May. And to be fair, I have my own reservations on Drake May. I have my own reservations on J.J. McCarthy. I don't like the fact that, JJ feels like the more logical pick. So, obviously, I'd be going after Jaden Daniels. But Jaden Daniels feels like the better pick in year one if this team wants to win year one. So, we'll see how that all works out. I'm pretty sure they gave up a future second as well. I'm trying to remember it. I think it was a future second. So, it does look like they're trying to position themselves to be able to win now. And so I'm going to go after, it's April Fool's. We're actually going to go after an upgrade on the offensive line. We're going to go Tali Fuaga to play a Hall of Fame level guard for them, and we're going to draft our quarterback at pick 23. Pick number 12 for the Broncos. This is an egregious need, but I'll go quarterback on this one because I could go corner, but again, I don't have that second first round pick where I'll get a QB that I like. And I don't have a second round pick either. We're going to be going after a QB here. And this is actually going to be Jaden Daniels over JJ McCarthy because I think JJ McCarthy is a little bit more of a Sean Payton guy. And I think Jaden Daniels is a little bit more of a stretch for Sean, who has a little bit more job security than I think we like to admit. But the Las Vegas Raiders are sitting here at pick 13. And I think that, Byron Murphy, Troy Fautanu, Terrion Arnold, those are all solid options. Well, Byron Murphy, not so much. Y'all got a very big splash in free agency. I do think that quarterback is the dark horse position to draft at pick 13. No one likes to do it, but if JJ McCarthy is here, we're going to take it. So you're going to have some good quarterback competition there. You don't have to start him right away because you have Minshew and AOC. It is still logical, and it is still possible. Pick 14 for the New Orleans Saints. Offensive tackle has been the move to go for the Saints, and it has a lot of merit to it. A lot of merit. But I'm actually going to opt for an edge rusher because that is a position they will need to upgrade. And I think Laiatu Latu is certainly on this team's board. Now, I could throw a major curveball here and go after a player who I have slightly higher than Latu in Marshawn Kneeland. This is a team that certainly has shown that it's willing to take guys earlier than what we like. And at 6 foot some, what is he, like 6'3", 270, and he's a great player too, great friend of the show. We have an interview with him over the past week on that PFF Mock the Mock. I actually am going to go after Marshawn Kneeland. He has a ton of top 30 visits. He's already listed as a guaranteed second round pick. The Saints very well might feel very uncomfortable with the edge options in the next round. They end up going Marshawn Kneeland there at pick 14. At pick 15, we got the Indianapolis Colts, and there's some great options on the board for this team. Of course, you got Terrion Arnold, Dallas Turner, there's some good choices here. Laiatu Latu as well. I think the least likely option out of the ones that are available is going to be that Brian Thomas Jr. pick, because you also disarm you're a potential rival in your own division there in the Jaguars. So I like being able to give a nice little middle finger to that in-division rival. At pick 16 for the Seahawks, the easy move is Troy Fautanu. So we're going to go for the next best thing. We're going to go Dallas Turner here out of Alabama. Obviously, this is a pretty optimal outcome, but that's because Dallas Turner ended up slipping. A lot of people might have a little bit of a concern with him with 20 bench press reps. Pick 17 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's corner or wide receiver primarily for this team, but we could look at being able to upgrade another position. I mean, I feel like those two positions are actually so butt cheeks overall that I feel comfortable forcing a position here. And it's almost too good to pass on Terry Arnold at this point. Again, he's also a former safety, so if everything else fails, which obviously I don't think it will, he can certainly be the option for you. Edge rusher is the other one, but Balky likes his athletic freaks in terms of overall measurables. Leatu Latu, not that, because of that arm length. I think he wouldn't like that too much. We're going to go Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Again, realistic, but not going to be the primary, maybe not even the secondary option if based on the positions, but in this situation, it is. At pick number 18, the right move for the Bengals is to go after a right tackle. Instead, we're going to be going after Byron Murphy here. I think this is actually a very logical pick. It is a position where BJ Hill's coming up on a contract, and Byron Murphy's incredible. You're still getting an upgrade, but you still have that big vacancy at right tackle. For the Rams at pick 19, based on the players available, it's edge rusher and tackle. Those are the primary issues for this team, but they very well might just love themselves some Cooper DeJean or Jerzon Newton. Defensive interior is a very positively looked at need. It's really heavily valued since Aaron Donald retired. However, not many people look at Jerzon Newton as the guy to fill that need. If it were Byron Murphy here, I think people would be very open to that. To me, it's always been offensive line pretty much. And you can, again, look at that edge rusher spot with Leatu Latu. One of the guys who I don't think gets enough attention is Jerzon Newton, so this is our chance to give him some love. The Steelers, the options are always offensive tackle or center, right? We're going to pass on that this time because I think that this team certainly could use something that's versatile in the secondary, and that is actually Cooper DeJean. I also do think wide receiver, though, with A.D. Mitchell, certainly an option here, and given the drop-off in wide receiver talent of being a potential 1 or a 2, again, that's very up to debate, but I have A.D. Mitchell as a true potential 1. Even though, you got George Pickens here, I think A.D. Mitchell's kick-ass. So this is the dark horse position for the Steelers to draft in the first round. A.D. Mitchell is the pick at 20. It is a logical pick as well, especially if you trust that some of the offensive tackles will slip. For the Dolphins, I normally go wide receiver as the dark horse pick for them. They're usually the ones I like to throw around a little bit, so to speak, in terms of just testing out the waters. But one of the positions I don't think that gets enough credit is that defensive interior position. Granted, we've already taken all the guys there, but I do think that our boy here, Tavondre Sweat, is not out of the realm of possibility for this pick. It is a little bit crazy, but it isn't insane. That being said, I still think Troy Fautanu would be a great choice here. I also think Cooper DeJean being a versatile defensive back would be a great choice. Actually, it is April Fool's. Let's have a little bit of fun here. Tavondre Sweat is the only player built like himself in this class that can actually start. I think he's getting a bad rap just because he's a big, fat defensive tackle, but his actual play on the field is incredible. He is scheme versatile as well. He played in a 4-3, and he can be a zero tech as a nose in a 3-4. Pick number 22 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Cooper DeJean, Leatu Latu, those are the options I think are the most probable. However, I'm looking at J.C. Latham here and Troy Fautanu, and I get excited because I think Troy Fautanu can play that guard spot right away and be trained to be that tackle in the long run. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Of course, we could also go after a linebacker here, but I think the linebacker is way more out of the question, and it's not necessarily something that I could see the Eagles drafting at 22 specifically. It would have to be a trade back. I could see them drafting an offensive lineman here, and Troy Fautanu can play that guard role in the short run as he develops to be that tackle in the long. Also, he just seems to fit the Philadelphia Eagles, so it's not out of the question. Of course, the Vikings are sitting here at 23. Yes, oh my God, we missed out on our quarterback. You didn't. I think Bo Nix is actually really talented. I mean, you could have all the little gripes that you want about it, but one of these picks is going to be a QB. Yeah, you technically missed out on some great players, but Bo Nix, I don't know why. People just hate him because they want to follow a media narrative. If you actually look at the people who are reliable in terms of their quarterback analysis, and I'm not saying to go to me for it, I'm saying go to other people for it. And they are big fans of Bo Nix. I just had Mike Renner on the show. He was saying, I think Bo Nix would be an option for me at pick 6. At pick 23, that's a pretty good value. And I think the value of going after Bo Nix here at this spot and getting Tali Fuagu's Hall of Fame versus I think Jackson Powers Johnson is not necessarily remotely close to that tier. And I think Bo Nix is pretty damn close to the tier of J.J. McCarthy. Of course, completely different players. I'm going to have Bo Nix be the selection here. At pick number 24 for the Dallas Cowboys, edge rusher is the dark horse need. Offensive tackle certainly up there as a potential need for him. Guard as well. I think that the offensive line is the most probable option, but I do think that getting some extra edge rushing help or linebacking help certainly could be in the mix. I would go Edgerrin Cooper here. Wide receiver is very likely. I mean, Keon Coleman. You know what? We're going to throw it in here. I'm going to go Keon Coleman. He's the cousin of CeeDee Lamb. I think that this is the probable pick, but it's just so outlandish to people at this moment that I'm going to take advantage of being able to put myself on a pedestal by saying I'm going to think that this is the pick on the night because Keon Coleman is the cousin of CeeDee Lamb. He's a great player. Pick number 25 for the Green Bay Packers. The obvious options, Cooper DeJean. A little bit less obvious are some of these corners here. And, I think that after going after a pure corner rather than a corner safety hybrid, I just don't really see a lot of, actually, you know what? Graham Barton is just exactly what the Packers look for in offensive line. It's a tackle that's center/guard versatile. I mean, this might be the primary option for some people, but given that Cooper DeJean's there, I'm perfectly fine opting for it at this point. Buccaneers, J.C. Latham is still here. I actually really like J.C. Latham. I think at this point, it's almost too good to pass on. I could go JPJ, but that's actually the more logical pick. I'm going to kick Gadecki back into guard, even though he's done pretty well as a tackle, and I'm going to draft the most talented player on the board. For the Cardinals, we've already gone Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think at this point, it would be obvious to go Leatu Latu. Let's help out the defense in another way by going Cooper DeJean. At pick 28 for the Buffalo Bills, I think the obvious choice for this team would go after a wide receiver or go after an edge rusher. Well, not necessarily an edge rusher. People don't select edge for the Bills in the first, maybe defensive back. So I'm actually going to go after the edge rusher. We'll go after Leatu Latu here. I think this team definitely needs a future edge rusher, and this is a great one to add. For the Lions, it's going to be corner or edge rusher that people go after the most. So I'm going to go after Jackson Powers Johnson to be their selection in the first, to be that guard and potential center successor. For the Ravens, it's pretty much tackle or a corner for them or wide receiver, but I think wide receiver is actually probably the least mock position to them. Corner, I don't know why people actually don't like selecting that for him, but it is what it is. I think that we're heavily undervaluing Ladd McConkey at this point. He is very similar to Garrett Wilson in terms of his overall skill set. I'm going to take him here to replace OBJ. At pick 31 for the San Francisco 49ers, its offensive line is the huge one. Same thing with corner. There's not many other positions I think this team would necessarily entertain, and I'm going to go after Amarius Mims here because it is by far the best player available, and there's just not many actual issues. The defensive interior value is not good enough for pick 31. And at pick 32 for the Chiefs, I think offensive tackle also is a good position to look at for them. But, wide receiver, Rashee Rice, obviously friend of the show. There's a lot of stuff's happening there. I think one of the dark horse positions is that cornerback position. With Nate Wiggins on the board, we're going to select that. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. You always warm my day. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful April Fools. Don't get fooled by people. This is still relatively realistic, but it's still a bit of a stretch. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.